Something unprecedented happened between 2016 and 2021 that completely changed how politics works around the world.
Breaking news
A reality
tonight.
TV star became president and turned every rule of government upside down. Donald Trump didn't just win an election. He rewrote the playbook for political power, transformed international relationships, and inspired movements across 6 continents. Foreign leaders started copying his tactics. Entire political parties shifted their strategies. Democracy itself faced its biggest test in decades. The ripple effects are still playing out today. From Brazil to Hungary, from trade wars to Twitter diplomacy, the changes that started in America spread everywhere. This isn't just American history anymore. It's global history. Over the next hour, we're breaking down exactly how one presidency changed everything. We'll show you the specific moments that shifted world politics, the leaders who copied the Trump playbook, and why these changes are probably permanent. Ready to understand how modern politics really works? Let's dive in. Before Trump, politicians followed a predictable script: speak carefully, build coalitions, follow party lines, maintain dignity. Trump threw that script in the trash, and somehow it worked. When Trump joined Twitter in 2009, politics was still mostly about TV ads and newspaper endorsements. By 2016, he had turned social media into the most powerful political weapon in history. 88 million followers hanging on every tweet. Foreign diplomats checking their phones at 3 a.m. to understand American foreign policy. Think about how crazy that actually is. The President of the United States was making policy announcements in 280 characters, often from his bedroom, sometimes contradicting his own staff within hours. Traditional campaign events were formal affairs. Podiums, prepared remarks, carefully selected audiences. Trump's rallies became something completely different. Part rock concert, part political theater, part religious revival. People would wait in line for hours, travel across states, camp out overnight. These weren't just American phenomena. Politicians in Brazil, the Philippines, and across Europe started copying the exact same format. The Trump rally template went global because it actually worked. Political scientists had spent decades studying what makes successful campaigns. Trump proved most of their theories wrong. He attacked members of his own party, made controversial statements daily, and broke every rule of presidential behavior. His approval ratings often dropped, but his base only got stronger. The data showed something unprecedented. Trump's supporters weren't just voting for him, they were emotionally invested in him. Traditional political loyalty was about party or policy. This was different. This was personal. American democracy had always run on unwritten rules. Presidents didn't attack federal judges by name. They released their tax returns. They didn't threaten to jail political opponents. They accepted election results. Trump challenged every single one of these traditions. The Constitution doesn't actually require most of what we considered presidential behavior. It was just tradition. Trump discovered the difference between legal requirements and political expectations, and he exploited that gap systematically. The Ukraine phone call wasn't just about one conversation. It represented something bigger. The president using foreign policy as a tool for domestic political gain. When Congress impeached Trump the first time, it wasn't really about Ukraine. It was about whether presidents have unlimited power in international relations. January 6, 2021 became the ultimate test of American democratic institutions. For the first time since 1814, the Capitol was breached. But this time, it wasn't foreign invaders. It was American citizens. encouraged by their own president, trying to overturn an election. The 2020 election was actually the most secure in American history. Multiple recounts, court cases, and investigations all reached the same conclusion. But Trump's claims about fraud created something unprecedented. Millions of Americans stopped trusting their own election system. Before 2020, roughly 90% of Americans trusted election results, regardless of who won. After 2020, trust in elections became completely partisan. Half the country believed one thing, half believed another. This wasn't just political disagreement anymore. This was competing versions of reality. Foreign governments started questioning American democratic stability. Countries that had looked to America as a model of democracy began developing backup plans. The global reputation of American institutions took a hit that's still being repaired. But here's what's fascinating. The system actually held. Federal judges, including many appointed by Trump himself, rejected election fraud claims. Republican election officials certified results. The peaceful transfer of power ultimately happened. American democracy was tested harder than any time since the Civil War, and it survived. But it was changed forever. Reshaping the Republican Party. The Republican Party that existed in 2015 and the one that emerged in 2021 were completely different organizations. Traditional conservative principles like free trade, strong international alliances, and fiscal responsibility took a backseat to cultural grievances and nationalist messaging. Trump didn't just win the presidency. He conquered the Republican Party from within. Candidates across the country started copying his speaking style, his policy positions, and his confrontational approach. Being Trump-endorsed became more valuable than traditional party support. Look at the specific changes. Republicans went from supporting free trade to embracing tariffs, from promoting NATO expansion to questioning alliance commitments, from championing American global leadership to America First isolationism. Even Republicans who privately disagreed with Trump had to publicly support him or risk losing their own elections. The party's base had shifted so dramatically that opposing Trump became political suicide for most Republican politicians. The data shows this clearly. Republican senators and representatives voted with Trump at historically high rates, even when those positions contradicted their previous records. This wasn't just party loyalty. This was complete ideological transformation. The 2022 midterm elections proved Trump's continued control over the party. Candidates he endorsed won Republican primaries at extremely high rates, even when those candidates were considered weaker general election prospects. Global impact and international relations. Trump's America First foreign policy ended 70 years of American international strategy. The effects rippled across every continent and changed how countries interact with each other. NATO had never faced internal pressure like this. An American president publicly questioning the alliance's value, demanding higher defense spending, and threatening to reduce American commitments. European leaders were forced to plan for a world where American protection might not be guaranteed. The irony is that Trump's NATO criticism actually worked. European defense spending increased significantly during his presidency, but it also accelerated European efforts to develop independent military capabilities, reducing their dependence on America. The trade war with China marked the end of decades of economic integration. Hundreds of billions in tariffs, disrupted supply chains, and a fundamental shift from cooperation to competition. Other countries were forced to choose sides in ways they hadn't experienced since the Cold War. But the trade war was just the beginning. Technology became a battleground. Huawei restrictions, semiconductor export controls, and social media bans created a new kind of international competition based on technological dominance rather than military power. Trump's Middle East strategy produced unexpected results. The Abraham Accords normalized relations between Israel and several Arab nations, fundamentally changing regional dynamics. Meanwhile, withdrawing from the Iran nuclear deal increased tensions and isolated America from European allies. The North Korea summits broke every rule of international diplomacy. No sitting American president had ever met with a North Korean leader. Trump's direct approach created global headlines, but produced few concrete results. Trump's policies affected countries far beyond major powers. Immigration restrictions impacted Latin America. Aid reductions affected Africa. Climate change skepticism isolated America globally and weakened multilateral institutions. Trump's electoral success provided a blueprint that populist movements worldwide copied almost exactly. The formula included direct social media communication, nationalist messaging, media antagonism, and outsider status claims. Jair Bolsonaro in Brazil explicitly modeled himself on Trump. Similar Twitter usage, comparable rally styles, environmental policy rollbacks, and challenges to democratic norms. International observers literally called him the Trump of the tropics. Across Europe, populist parties adopted Trump-style tactics. Hungary's Viktor Orban pioneered illiberal democracy. Italy's League Party embraced anti-establishment messaging. Even Brexit campaigns used similar strategies to Trump's 2016 election. The influence reached Asia through leaders like Philippines' Duterte, whose confrontational style paralleled Trump's approach. Regional democratic norms faced challenges as authoritarian leaders felt emboldened by Trump's success. Political scientists documented a global decline in democratic norms during Trump's presidency. This wasn't coincidence. Authoritarian leaders worldwide felt more confident, challenging democratic institutions when they saw Trump doing the same thing successfully. Traditional international democracy promotion efforts weakened as America's own democratic reputation faced questions. Other countries couldn't look to America as a model when America itself was struggling with democratic norms. Economic and technological disruption. Trump's trade policies didn't just affect America and China. They disrupted global supply chains that had been developing for decades. Manufacturing began returning to North America, and nearshoring accelerated as companies sought to reduce dependence on Chinese production. Withdrawing from the Paris Climate Agreement and promoting fossil fuel production had global implications. America became a net energy exporter, challenging OPEC's influence and changing global energy markets fundamentally. The beginning of technological decoupling between America and China created new challenges for every country. Nations had to choose between American and Chinese technology systems, from 5G networks to social media platforms. Trump's unpredictable policy announcements created new types of market volatility. The Trump rally in stock markets showed how presidential tweets could move global financial markets within minutes. Even out of office, Trump's influence continues shaping American and global politics. His endorsements still carry enormous weight in Republican primaries. His policy positions remain party orthodoxy. His communication style has been adopted by politicians worldwide. Trump's presidency prompted discussions about institutional reforms, presidential power limitations, electoral system changes, media regulation, and alliance restructuring all became serious policy debates rather than academic discussions. Other democracies learned from America's experience. Constitutional reforms to prevent norm-breaking, expanded media literacy programs, strengthened electoral protections, and increased international cooperation on democracy support, all emerged as responses to the Trump era. The ultimate impact of Trump's presidency remains to be determined. Will the institutional changes prove lasting? Can international alliances be rebuilt? Will populist movements continue growing globally? Understanding the Trump effect. We've covered massive ground in the past hour, from Twitter diplomacy to global populism, from democratic stress tests to international realignment. Whether you view Trump's impact as positive or negative doesn't change the fundamental reality. Everything changed. The pre-2016 world of predictable diplomacy, traditional campaigns, and accepted political norms feels like ancient history. New communication technologies reshaped governance. International relationships shifted rapidly. Political coalitions realigned completely. Most importantly, Trump's presidency proved that in our interconnected world, no country's politics remain purely domestic. American elections influence democracies worldwide and shape global stability for years. The story isn't finished. It's still being written by voters globally, institutions adapting to new challenges, and leaders choosing how to govern in this transformed era. What aspects of Trump's global impact surprised you most? Which changes do you think will be permanent? Let us know in the comments below. Subscribe for more political analysis that explains how our world actually works, and hit notifications so you don't miss our upcoming series on democracy trends worldwide. Thanks for spending the past hour exploring one of the most consequential political transformations of our lifetime.